When we bought the old Victorian house, Emma called it her dream project. "Just imagine, David," she said, running her fingers along the weathered banister, "what it will look like after a little love and care." I smiled at her enthusiasm. After 10 years of marriage, I'd learned that when Emma wanted something, she'd find a way to make it happen. The house was beautiful but needed serious work. A leaky roof, outdated plumbing, uneven floors, it was a renovation nightmare, but she saw potential in every flaw. I agreed because I wanted her to be happy. At the time, I didn't realize the house would become the very place where our marriage unraveled. It started with hiring an architect. Emma wanted someone visionary to reimagine the layout. I trusted her to choose, since I was busy with work. When she showed me the portfolio of a man named Adrian, I noticed the photos were sleek and modern. He specialized in blending old charm with contemporary design. Emma's eyes sparkled as she explained his ideas. When I met him for the first time, I couldn't help but feel an odd tension. Adrian was tall, early 40s, dressed like a man who had just stepped out of a magazine. His voice carried an easy confidence, and his gaze lingered a bit too long on Emma. I brushed it off. People in creative fields often seemed overly expressive. Renovations began, and Emma was constantly in contact with him. At first, it was all professional. She'd send me updates. "Adrian says the load-bearing wall in the kitchen can't be removed without reinforcement. Adrian thinks the sunroom could be expanded." It was always Adrian this, Adrian that. Then, she started spending more time at the house during the day. She said it was to oversee the workers, make sure decisions were made quickly. I couldn't join her. I had a demanding job at an engineering firm and often worked late. She'd come home excited, telling me how the new plans would transform our lives. I noticed small changes. Emma dressed differently when she went to the renovation site, more fitted clothes, subtle makeup, her hair always perfectly done. When I teased her about dressing up for the construction crew, she laughed it off. "David, don't be silly. I just like looking presentable." At night, she seemed distracted. I'd catch her scrolling through her phone with a faint smile, and when I asked, she'd say it was just emails from Adrian. Sometimes she'd step into another room to take his calls. I ignored the red flags because I trusted her. We'd been through so much together. College sweethearts. Long nights building our careers. She'd supported me when my father passed away. I couldn't imagine her betraying me. But the distance between us grew. Conversations turned into logistics, bills, schedules, what to order for dinner. Intimacy faded quietly. I chalked it up to stress. Renovations were exhausting, I told myself. The first real sign came when I decided to surprise her. One Friday, I left work early, thinking we could have lunch together. I texted her on the way but got no reply. When I arrived at the house, the front door was ajar. I stepped inside and heard laughter coming from the unfinished living room. Emma's voice, soft and playful, mixed with a deeper male tone. I froze. I walked in slowly, and there they were, Emma and Adrian, sitting on the edge of a covered sofa. He was leaning close, showing her something on his tablet, but their knees touched. Too close. Too familiar. Emma noticed me first. She jumped slightly, her smile faltering. "David! You're here early." Adrian straightened up and gave me a polite nod, his expression unreadable. I forced a smile. Thought I'd come see the progress. Emma stood quickly, smoothing her dress. "We were just discussing the kitchen layout. Nothing's decided yet." Her voice was casual, but her cheeks flushed. I pretended not to notice. We walked through the rooms, and Adrian explained the plans with his usual charm. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more than architecture connecting them. That night, Emma was quiet. I asked if everything was okay, and she gave me a soft, tired smile. "Just a long day. Too much dust and noise." I wanted to believe her. But something deep inside me whispered that the cracks in the house weren't the only ones forming. After that day in the half-finished living room, I tried to push away my suspicions. I told myself I was overthinking, that Emma wouldn't risk our marriage for a fleeting distraction. But doubt, once planted, has a way of growing like ivy, creeping into every quiet moment. I started noticing patterns. Adrian's name lit up her phone more often. She kept it face down on the table now, something she'd never done before. When I asked about her day, her answers were vague. It was fine, just more decisions about the wiring and flooring. No details, no warmth. One evening, she came home later than usual, her hair slightly tousled, lips a little too red. I asked if she'd been at the house, and she nodded. There were some last-minute changes Adrian needed my approval on. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But a cold, hollow feeling settled in my stomach. A week later, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I left work early again, but this time I didn't text her. I drove to the house quietly, parking a block away. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow on the half-renovated structure. Through one of the uncovered windows, I saw them. Emma was standing in what would eventually become the new kitchen. Adrian was beside her, closer than any professional should be. They were laughing about something, and then, he tucked a loose strand of her hair behind her ear. She didn't pull away. I felt like the ground shifted beneath me. My first instinct was to storm in, to demand an explanation, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the sheer shock. Maybe it was the way she looked at him, soft, with a kind of tenderness she hadn't shown me in months. I walked away silently, my chest heavy. That night, I said nothing. I watched her move around our temporary rental apartment, her face glowing as she talked about how beautiful the house was going to be. Her voice carried an excitement that I hadn't heard in a long time. It hurt to realize it wasn't the house that was making her shine, it was him. The next few days were torture. I went through the motions at work, barely hearing what my colleagues said. At night, I stared at the ceiling, wondering if it was already too late. I tried small gestures to pull her back. I booked a dinner reservation at her favorite restaurant, hoping we could reconnect. She smiled politely but declined. I promised Adrian I'd meet him tomorrow to finalize the bathroom tiles, she said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Finalizing tiles at 9 o'clock at night? I didn't argue. I just nodded, my throat too tight to speak. Eventually, I reached out to a friend who worked as a contractor. I asked if he knew anything about Adrian Cole. My friend hesitated, then sighed. Look, man. Adrian's got a bit of a reputation. He's talented, but let's just say he's known for getting too close to clients. Especially married ones. Those words sealed it. I needed proof, not because I didn't believe what my eyes and gut were already screaming, but because part of me still clung to hope that I was wrong. So I hired a private investigator. It felt surreal, like something out of a bad movie. A week later, I got the photos. Emma and Adrian at the house. At a cafe, sitting too close. And then the final picture that destroyed me completely, them leaving the house together after dark, his hand on the small of her back, guiding her into his car. I remember staring at the photos for what felt like hours, numb. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the realization that she had already left me in her heart, long before she would in reality. When she came home that night, I looked at her differently. She kissed me on the cheek absent-mindedly, her eyes already elsewhere. "Everything okay?" she asked, noticing my silence. "Yeah," I lied. "Just tired." But inside, I was anything but tired. I was burning with anger, confusion, grief. I wanted to confront her right then, to throw the photos on the table and demand the truth. But I hesitated. Some part of me needed to know why. Why him? Why now? So I waited. And in the waiting, the distance between us became a canyon. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake next to her, staring at the ceiling, listening to her soft, steady breathing. How many nights had she fallen asleep like this, next to me, while dreaming of him? By morning, I had decided I couldn't drag this out any longer. The truth was heavy on my chest, suffocating. When she came home that evening, I was waiting at the dining table with the photos spread out like evidence in a trial. She froze in the doorway, her purse dangling from her shoulder. "What's this?" she asked quietly, her voice betraying a flicker of panic. I looked up at her, my voice calm, too calm. "You tell me." Her eyes darted to the pictures. The one of her laughing with Adrian over coffee. The one of him tucking her hair behind her ear. The one of them leaving the house together, his hand on her back like she belonged to him. For a brief moment, I saw her fight the instinct to lie. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her shoulders sagged, and she dropped her purse on the floor. "David." She started, but her voice cracked. "How long?" I asked, my tone flat. She swallowed hard. "It started a few months ago." "I didn't mean for it to." "Didn't mean for what?" I cut her off, my calm cracking into something sharper. "Didn't mean to get caught? Didn't mean to betray your husband?" Her face crumpled. "I was lonely," she whispered. "You've been so distant lately, always buried in work. And Adrian, he made me feel seen again. He listened. He." "Don't," I said, raising a hand. "Don't romanticize this. You didn't trip and fall into his arms. You made a choice. Over and over." She winced like I'd struck her. "I still love you, David," she said, stepping closer, her eyes wet with tears. "It wasn't supposed to mean anything. It just happened." I laughed bitterly. "It just happened? You chose him. You chose him every time you hid your phone. Every time you lied about staying late. Every time you looked at him the way you stopped looking at me." Tears streamed down her face now. "I didn't stop loving you. I swear I didn't. I just lost myself. The house, the stress, and he was there." I stared at her, searching for the woman I had loved for more than a decade. She was still there, but she was also someone else entirely. Someone I didn't recognize. "Do you love him?" I asked quietly. She hesitated. And in that hesitation, I got my answer. I nodded slowly. "Then there's nothing left to say." "No, please," she begged, reaching for my hand. "We can fix this. I'll end it. I'll do whatever it takes, counseling, anything. Just, don't give up on us." But I couldn't. Something fundamental had shattered. The trust, the foundation, the us we used to be, it was gone. "I already gave you everything I had," I said softly. "And you gave it to him." I stood and walked past her, feeling like a ghost in my own life. Behind me, I heard her sobbing, her voice breaking as she called my name. But I didn't look back. Over the next few weeks, I moved out. I stayed with my brother while I filed for divorce. She sent texts, long emails, even handwritten letters begging for another chance. I didn't respond. When I went back to the house one last time to collect the rest of my things, I saw the finished renovations. It was beautiful, open, bright, everything she had dreamed of. But it felt hollow. Like a stage set, empty of meaning. I stood in what was supposed to be our new kitchen, tracing the edge of the marble countertop she'd chosen. This was the place where she'd built a future with someone else in her heart. As I left, I closed the door gently behind me. Months have passed since then. I live in a smaller apartment now, simple and quiet. I'm still healing. Some days I wake up angry. Some days I feel nothing at all. But slowly, I'm learning to breathe again. Emma kept the house. I heard Adrian eventually moved on to another project and probably another client. I don't know if they stayed together. I don't care. What I do know is this: love can't survive where honesty dies. And sometimes, the most painful thing isn't the betrayal itself, it's realizing the person you thought would always be your home was just a temporary shelter.